Hey guys, just finished watching Titans Season 1, Episode 8, Dawn of Troy. What an episode this was. This one was a little bit interesting. I mean, a little bit more of a calmer episode. Not really as much kind of hijinks going on, not really as much action going on in this episode. It was quite an interesting episode, quite an okay episode. That's a 9.0 here on IMDb out of 10, but I don't know. I guess I like this episode, but it is definitely a bit of a more calmer episode. So we have Dick, and we open up the episode with Dick Grayson and Donna kind of as kids talking about the Joker and stuff, and how their relationship with Batman and Wonder Woman, respectively, right? And I think that was really interesting, cool seeing that, and they're throwing around the old Robin throwing star there, the throwing bird shuriken, I guess. I think it's really cool seeing that. And it's interesting in their relationship that they knew each other from a long time. They probably met in the Justice League or something. I'm wondering if they ever were part of the Justice League, or kind of, they met during Justice League events type thing, or something like that, or just general kind of Wonder Woman, Batman meeting up stuff. And so I think that would be cool. I think it would have been interesting to kind of see Wonder Woman in this, not actually see her, but kind of seeing the ways we've seen Bruce Wayne so far. Maybe a little bit of like the lasso or something. I think could have been cool. Maybe seeing someone not dressed up in the Wonder Woman costume, but just somewhat dressed up as Diana Prince, and maybe the lasso is hanging out just a little bit, and you can barely see a faint glow of it, right? I think that would have been an interesting way to play with that. So we see Dick Grayson he leaves the team, the Titans type thing, although they don't call themselves the Titans just yet. He leaves the team to go looking for Donna, and that's when she finds out she stopped fighting crime. She's no longer doing that. She's I guess she's a journalist or something, because she's kind of taking down poachers and stuff, and Dick kind of follows her for that meeting and that type thing. But she's doing it with taking photos, but she also runs an art gallery. So I'm not sure as to how she kind of is doing that. And I understand if she's, famous enough as an art person, she might be able to post her photos out there. But just kind of like, is she a journalist type thing? It would have been interesting to kind of show us exactly what she does. I could see her being a bit of both, kind of like a Jimmy Olsen type thing, but both, journalist and photographer, both on both sides type thing. The high-end photography market can make her a bit of money too, while she's also doing both. I could see that way being being the photojournalist could be the way to kind of support herself, and then the artist stuff is kind of a passion that she can do both ways, right? One can support the other, right, type thing. I think that's an interesting idea to kind of play with. So hopefully we get to see her in a costume, because I think that would be really awesome. I think this actress that they picked for Wonder Girl is amazing so far in this episode. We haven't seen her do too much, but I mean, it was really cool seeing some stuff. The only thing I did notice is that at the beginning of the episode, when she kind of did some flips and stuff, she's like, if you can still handle yourself, she kind of runs and flips over the car. It looked obviously like a CGI, whereas then you had Dick Grayson do it, and it was clear that, it was actual person doing it, probably a stuntman, but, and someone actually did that. And I get the idea with that. She's Wonder Girl, she has superpowers, whereas she's just Dick Grayson, right? He has no superpowers, it's all agility. So all of his flips and stuff need to be done by actual people, because it has to look real, because he's supposed to be able to do it. It's supposed to be something that a person can physically do, right? So I think that's really going to be interesting to see where things kind of go on with that. So that's where I'm really excited to see as to where things go with this for a season 2, just so they can get a little bit more of a bigger budget on the CGI perspective, and kind of soften and polish out the CGI so that it doesn't look CGI at all. There's a way they could have done fights like that, have her flip over the truck and make it look super real, using wire works. I mean, it was in an alley, right? You could set up some wires all across that alley, and have her do the stunt, and kind of, make her leap it in one bound or something like that. That would look superhuman compared to Dick Grayson, right? So I think that was really cool there. I wish we would have seen maybe her costume, to see what version of the costume she wears, since Donna Troy has so many different costumes in the comics. She started off like with something pretty similar to Wonder Woman, or with the red and the red colors, or the dark and the stars type thing. I think it would be really interesting to see as to kind of what kind of color she could get for this show. I think it would be interesting to see that. So we see that Corey and they're all on a train, and she just keeps spotting this guy, and it turns out he's this kind of marshal, and that's when we find out the FBI has ends up spotting Corey on the train, and she kind of starts freaking out as she's having flashbacks throughout this whole throughout this whole episode of to her ever since last episode when she was kind of played with in her mind, by in the asylum. So I think that's really going to be cool to see as to kind of where things could go with that. If she's kind of having these flashbacks throughout this whole episode of her kind of crash landing her ship, I guess. I think that's really going to be cool to see that. And I'd love to see an episode fully, all this backstory, all these clips and stuff. They clearly filmed something, so I'd like to see maybe a full episode dealing with that. I think that's really going to be fun to see as to where things go there. So they get attacked in the train and stuff. The FBI are all there. She starts doing all kinds of stuff. And one thing that's interesting to see is that Corey still hasn't been able to fly yet. And, when she was surrounded by all these FBI agents, the first thing I thought of was fly, just kind of fly up, take off and fly. So I think that's going to be cool to see if they kind of bring that power into here, or are they going to kind of tone her down a little bit and just take away the power and not give her the ability to fly, or once she kind of gets her memory back, which it looks like she might have at the end of this episode, maybe then she could learn to fly and rediscover it. I think that could be something cool to see that, or for the people who don't know she can fly, I think it'd be really cool to see at one point later on in this season, which I'm not sure how many episodes we're supposed to be getting from this. It says here 12 episodes on IMDb, and I got TV Time says we got about, 12 again. It says 11, yeah, so probably 12. So 11 or 12 episodes is what it says here online, but so I think that's really going to be cool to see. It's kind of where things kind of go with her powers and stuff, and to see that. I'd like to see her kind of, flying. Maybe in end of an episode, someone throws her off a cliff or type thing, and then we pick up the next episode with her just kind of floating away. Or I don't know if I'd want to save that as make that the cliffhanger of her literally falling off of something. But at the same time, since so many people would know that she's she has she's ability to fly, right? I imagine most of the people watching this show know that her powers, whether it's, you read her in the comic books, you've watched her in the cartoons. There's been so many cartoons in the last couple of, in the recent years that, she's kind of known out there. Her basic powers should be somewhat known, and nowadays it's too easy to go online to just search up what exactly are her powers, right? So I think that would be something interesting to see, but I'd like to see that kind of brought in, and maybe they could do I guess not a Smallville style where they wait to the last episode of the entire show to make him fly, but and giving her the flight at the end of this season could be something fun to play with going into next season. So I think it's going to be cool to see where things go with her powers. So we find out in this episode that Donna Troy can kind of translate. She has a book that can translate the markings from Corey's ship that was, I guess I'm not sure what planet Corey is supposed to be from. I forget that. I got to look that back up. But I guess probably her native language and stuff. And I think that's going to be interesting to see is kind of where things kind of go with that. And hopefully we also could get some sort of flashback, these flashbacks we keep seeing that she keeps seeing throughout this episode, are those flashbacks, how long from when she crashed on Earth until she, woke up in that car crash at the beginning of this season, how long did things happen? Kind of a bit of time, probably some amount of time happened there, right? Since she had some sort of relationship with someone, she was doing all kinds of stuff for, I can't think of the guy's name, but there was the same character who was played by Dolph Lundgren in an Arrow type thing, and I think that's really going to be interesting to see. Konstantin Kovar, that's his name, and I think that's going to be fun to see is kind of how long things go with that. Do we get to see a flashback as to an episode entirely about Corey, just seeing her entire kind of history type thing that she's kind of blanking on? That would be cool to see. How long is she missing now that she's having these flashbacks to there? Is there how much time is there, or do we only get pieces as we go throughout the throughout the show? Now, I think that could be an interesting idea to kind of do it somewhat like an Arrow style, where she slowly gets flashbacks as time goes on throughout the different seasons. But at the same time, once we get far and farther away from the season one, then you kind of have I don't care what it matter with the flashback. It doesn't matter anymore now that we've know the whole kind of her and her origin, her planet. What happened in between doesn't really matter because we know she survives in after we know she survives in going into season one, right? So, and I think that's really interesting because it also goes with the quote that was it Stephen King says something about I forget how it goes, but something about backstory. How everyone has a great backstory that nobody cares about. backstory is great, but nobody cares about it, right? So I think that's really an interesting idea to kind of play with that. So if you have them back, if you're going to do backstory like this, you have to make it matter to now. So the reason how they're doing this and making it work for Corey, his backstory matters now because we find out that she is sent to take care of the Raven, right? So I think that's really going to be interesting to see. So there's kind of that effect on the future. So we care about the effect on the future, on the current storyline, on the present, and rather than the effect on the past. So I think that's really going to be cool to kind of play with that, and to see as to kind of how things go with that. So we see kind of Rachel Raven, she tries to heal Corey's brain, and that's when we find out that the letter that from the storage unit translate to that Corey was sent to take care of the Raven. And at the end of the episode, we stop it with, her Raven kind of picking, or Corey kind of, I guess it looks like she kind of, Raven unlocks her memories in her head. I think that was going to be cool to see that. And then she's kind of, her eyes glow green, she picks up Raven by the neck and stuff. So I think that's going to be cool to see as to kind of where things go with that. And I think it's going to be fun to see as to where things kind of continue on from here, as to see as to how things kind of change up for this episode. Now, the trailer for the next episode shows Hawk and Dove back, and it looks like we're going to get the origin of Hawk and Dove, with Hawk and Dove originally being two guys and stuff. And I think that's really going to be cool to see that original storyline, since that's how Dick Grayson, that's how Steve Ditko originally created these two characters, Hawk and Dove. They were originally two guys in the comic books, and then they were later on turned into a guy and a girl by Rob Liefeld in the 90s or something, recently type thing, 2000, maybe, I might even been, I'm not sure where the first appearance of female Dove is, probably something like New 52 or something kind of recent. I'll have to look that one up, but looks like next episode's going to be solely driven on that, and I think that's going to be fun to kind of have them back. But at the same time, I'm kind of, this cliffhanger for this episode is so good that I really want to dive into it and pick that back up, but it looks like we'll have to wait till this was episode 8, from the next one is going to be 9, and then we'll have to wait till episode 10 before we can get the conclusion of this episode. And I don't think that, I don't really want to have, this storyline be a backup storyline, and I don't think they're really going to do that in this show. They really like to focus on one thing at a time so much, and kind of just tease as to where things are going. That's why we're not following, Doom Patrol and stuff, because they're going to get their own show and stuff. But I think it's really going to be cool to see as to kind of, we're probably going to be 100% Hawk and Dove in this episode, maybe tidbits here and there at the end of the episode, if they kind of reach out to Dick Grayson after maybe she gets out of the hospital. Hopefully we get to see as to kind of how much time kind of goes by. Looks like we're going to be kind of doing the origin, but hopefully at the beginning and end of the episode we can have maybe we start off with Hawk and Dove in the hospital, and Dove still in surgery, right, in the hospital recovering. And then it's just, Hank's kind of flashbacking throughout the whole episode. And then at the end, it jumps a couple of weeks. And then it's like, oh, she's getting better. She's kind of waking up, type thing. And then that's when we kind of see that, and I think that could be really interesting to see, kind of building her come back, right? I think that's really going to be fun to see there. And I imagine that, Dick Grayson, even though he's kind of on the outs with Bruce Wayne and stuff, he would probably still have her, still have Dick Grayson, still have Bruce Wayne help out with that, Wayne Tech, Alfred, something like that somehow, Jason Todd, I don't know, he'd have access, but he'd help to get Alfred to maybe help out with Dove and stuff. And I'd even imagine that someone like Bruce Wayne should even know about that before even Dick Grayson even tells him. I'd be like, oh, damn, she's in trouble. I'll help you, help you out. That way, he can always have, if he ever needs to call on Hawk and Dove, he would have that, right? So someone like Bruce Wayne, he really would want to have that relationship kind of built in, even if he doesn't like the way things are going. Like if we saw, in the first or second episode, when we saw that flashback to Dick Grayson working with Hawk and Dove, and he snuck out to work with them, and Batman didn't want him to work with them. Batman still would still be kind of, Bruce would still be the type of person to kind of, he might not like their methods, they might be a bit violent and they're untrained and all that stuff, but he's still not gonna, he still would probably pay for their medical bills, help them out, give them the best treatment that they can, so that if he ever needs them, he ever needs their help for some reason, they would owe him one, right? And he would always want to have that in his pocket, even if it's just kind of a, you owe me one now, right? I think that's that. If he never uses it, he still would want to have that in his back pocket. I think that's really going to be cool to kind of, I would kind of play with that. If we had Bruce Wayne kind of showing up, or maybe show us Alfred and he sends Alfred to do it, right? I think that could be fun. Just seeing as to kind of where things could kind of go with that would be something fun to play with. So all in all, I'm really excited to see as to kind of where things go with this in the next episode. I'm really excited for episode 10 because that's probably where we're going to get the finishing of that storyline, because it's just such a too big of a cliffhanger to have it be a backup storyline in the next episode, with Hawk and Dove being the main storyline for the next episode based on the trailer. So I think that could be interesting to see as to where things go with that. So we'll have to wait and see just how things kind of continue on, but it looks like it's going to be fun to see as to where things go here. The one thing, though, I've been getting a little annoyed, started getting annoyed at this point, is Beast Boy only turning into a tiger. I want to see him turn into more things. That's the problem that I had with Vixen. On Legend of Tomorrow. She only ever turned into like the one animal all the time, or three animals all the time. Where she has thousands of different animals she can choose from. You go to the cartoons, and yes, comparing it to the cartoons is kind of unfair, but that's everyone's kind of basis for the character when it comes to TV. Even in the comic books, he always just changes into different characters all the time. Remember in Young Justice, he was able to turn into different creatures from other planets too, once he kind of met them and interacted with them, right, and learned to touch them, learned the genetic codes. And that would be something interesting to see if if we ever, in some reason in a season in the future, if you ever bring Beast Boy to a different planet, or aliens start coming to Earth or whatever, can it turn into those aliens? I think that would be something interesting to kind of play with. So all in all, I'm really excited to see as to where things go with this, but I'd like to get a bit more of a of a deep dive next time we see them training again. Maybe they become the actual team. I would like to see someone like Dick Grayson. I'd like to see him actually go up to guard and say, okay, Tiger's really cool, but we need you to turn into something else. Maybe they need to get into somewhere. They need to get into sneak into a building, right? Like, wouldn't it have been more feasible for Garth in the last episode when they went into the asylum, if he turned into kind of a mouse or something, he was able to go through the air vents and find his way around without getting spotted, right? Or turn into a chameleon, climb on the walls, or turn into a small monkey and kind of climbing in the rafters, or things like that. It would be really cool to see that turning into a falcon, kind of flying around. I think it would be quite interesting to kind of play with those things, just like how in the cartoons, he would always kind of turn into a mouse, climb on top of a person, turn into an elephant and crush the person. Things like that would be really cool to see. And I think that would, obviously, that's maybe a bit difficult with CGI, so hopefully they can change things up, but I'd like to see that kind of built into this show, so they could kind of turn it up as the budget gets bigger, and as since as this show gets more popular, maybe they can upgrade their budget more. Hopefully it's doing well. I'm not entirely sure, since it's on the streaming service, there's no way of knowing, but I think it's going to be interesting to see as to kind of how things could go with that. But I'd love to see that, maybe kind of build it into the story as to why he's only turning into a tiger. I know he's mentioned it before that the tiger is just the one he's most comfortable with. That's the one he kind of most identifies with. I get that, but I'd like to kind of dive deeper into that, maybe by having Dick Grayson trying to make him train, and he'd be like, okay, I could try this, and then he tries it, and then goes back. So I'd like to see different things like that, to kind of seeing him turning into different stuff, especially if this kind of Donna Troy poacher storyline gets continued. Although I just feel like that's going to get on pause. I don't see it really getting continued too much, as we already have so much going on with Hawk and Dove and the Raven and Coriander storyline. I think that could be. I think that poacher storyline is going to get put on pause, but I definitely would be something to play with, and I'd love to see him at some point kind of diving deeper into story-wise in the show why a Beast Boy doesn't change into more animals than just a tiger, right? I think I want an answer in the story rather than just kind of CGI and budget problems, right? I don't want that to be the only answer. I need a story-driven answer as to why he's only changing into one, and a little bit more, and let's dive deeper into it than just, oh, it's just my favorite one. That's just the one I want to choose, I need to dive deeper into that. So let me know what you think, guys, about all this in the comments below. Where do you think things are going? And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.